everybody. Welcome to Pressbox Talk, Episode 1. I'm here with George.
What's going on, everybody?
And today we're going to be discussing our MLB season prediction. MLB opening day rapidly approaching, and we're just going to be discussing what teams we think will place and pick some playoff winners and best players in their league, AL and NL.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting time. Always great when baseball's around the corner. You know, you kind of sit through the winter wondering what you're going to do, kind of watching different sports. But always one of my favorite times of the year. There's going to be a lot of great teams this year, and I'm excited. I'm excited to make some predictions.
Definitely. So let's start in the AL East, probably the most competitive division right now. We're getting some old, as I stated, Cold War, early 2000s AL East, where really it's only looking like the Yankees and Boston, but it's who we have in first and second. I have at least first place in the AL East. I have the Boston Red Sox for the third straight year winning the division by at least 3 games ahead of the Yankees. I have them at least with 98 wins. Yankees I have in second place with 95 wins. Who do you have winning the East?
Well, it's so funny because we look at all these offseason additions. Obviously, the Red Sox signing J.D. Martinez is huge. I mean, that's another great bet to their already stacked lineup. But you can't doubt the prowess of Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. I took the Yankees as my favorite to win the AL East. I'd probably pin them around 98 games as well as you. I'd put them about 5 games above Boston. I'll give Boston about 93, maybe up to 95. But I think really if the back end of the rotation for the Yankees can find their way, if they can figure out something, you know, they don't have to be the best pitchers. If they can win around 11, 12 games, have an ERA about 4.2 or less, I think they can make a serious run because they've got Severino at the top of their rotation. He's going to be good. Tanaka could be hit or miss. If he has a great season, though, that just adds on. And I think these pitchers are going to have a lot less pressure with how well their offense is going to perform.
That was one of the things I was saying. The reason I picked Boston was, but yes, the Yankees definitely have the better lineup. Not saying Boston, of course, doesn't have a good lineup. That is a very dangerous lineup. But when you look in New York, you got, you know, pretty much a murderer's row again of Judge, now Stanton, and Gary Sanchez, who you never want to look past on, plus Greg Bird, who is definitely a power threat. But once again, I still say Boston does have the better pitching. You have Chris Sale, who had an amazing year last year, was very close to winning Cy Young. You have Pomeranz. You have a much more in-depth bullpen. And in my opinion, the Yankees' best pitcher is Tanaka. And as you said, he can be very inconsistent, which can be a problem. And we saw that kind of exploited last year in the ALCS. Credit, they went to Game 7, but it was pretty much exploited. And plus, Yankees, besides Chapman, who's it?
Dylan Betances.
Yeah. Their bullpen isn't as in-depth as I believe Boston is.
Yeah, I think you can look at it. I really think you can make a case. Obviously, Boston has a better, stronger bullpen, but, you know, pitching will win you so many games, and I've heard my whole life, you know, pitching will win games, and that's true. But if you're going to put these two teams in a do-or-die situation, you know, you have the 2 guys who are leading their leagues in power. I mean, combined, these 2 guys alone had probably almost more of the home runs than the Giants had all year. The Giants only hit about, I think, 112 or something like that, and they finished last in the league. And I just think there's so much power, so much. Even a guy who I think is flying under the radar who's going to have a huge season with the Yankees is Brett Gardner. Brett Gardner is a good guy. He hits around 270s, 280s, gets on base a lot, and he has great speed at the top of the lineup. He can steal bases. So you have him, you know, with their projected lineup, you have him hitting first, and then Judge second, and then Giancarlo third. I mean, think about how many innings can open up with the Yankees scoring first and taking pressure off the pitcher. So think if Gardner gets on, then you look, well, who would I rather face? Well, it's kind of like when the Red Sox, ironically, had Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz. Who would I rather face, Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton? So there will be a lot more opportunities for Aaron Judge to see a lot of fastballs, and I think it's just going to work out so well. But for Boston, I really think the guy that needs to put it together and have a great comeback year is Rick Porcello. If Rick Porcello can have a big season, that's going to make the Red Sox a very, very scary threat for more than the regular season and into the playoffs as well. He struggled coming off that Cy Young season, and it made a lot of people raise some questions. You know, he even really, you know, was that a fluke year? And he definitely wants to come back and show it. And I think it's going to be exciting all year long between these two teams.
Definitely. Like I said, it's having mirror images of the early 2000s between Boston and New York. Let's go to the rest of the AL East. In third place, I had the Toronto Blue Jays at third. I give them 80 wins, 82 losses. Their pitching is very good. They have a very good rotation, but besides Donaldson, they're hitting. I mean, you can have Pilar, Tulowitzki, and even Justin Smoke, but really their best hitter is Donaldson. And other than that, I can't think of as consistent hitters as, say, like Boston or New York has. So Blue Jays, I gave them 80 wins, 82 losses. Fourth place, I have the Orioles, 74 losses, 88 wins. 74 wins, 88 losses, because besides really Manny Machado, who, again, can fluctuate, and they don't really have good pitching at all. I mean, fourth place. And at the tail end of it is the Tampa Bay Rays. I gave them somewhat of a benefit of doubt. I have them winning 71 games, 91 losses. Being generous a bit because they completely gutted their team this offseason. But, I mean, when you're a small market team, you're kind of handcuffed into doing that.
Yeah, I think at the bottom of the division, I'm in the exact same agreement. I have the Blue Jays finishing third. I have the Orioles finishing fourth and the Rays finishing fifth. But I wouldn't eliminate the Blue Jays just yet. Being around the club, Tulowitzki going through an ankle injury and now has bone spurs that he's struggling with. So there's going to be some guys who are going to have to fill the shoes at shortstops. But they got Aldimes Diaz from the Cardinals, who is a good hitter. He's a good replacement. And I think Donaldson, he had a monster second half last year. And he started off really not so hot because he'd been injured. He was injured last spring. He was injured going into the season. He wasn't able to really have that good of a first half, but he bounced back the second half. For the Blue Jays to be successful, they have to have their pitching on. 2 years ago, they had the best pitching in the AL East, and everyone had them as the favorite last year. They were like, wow, look at this pitching, look at this rotation. And ironically, they had the Yankees finishing around third place last year. Well, now you're in a similar situation where, okay, this lineup's going to hit. You know the Yankees are going to hit. What's their pitching going to do? Now it's kind of the opposite with the Blue Jays. This rotation can pitch. If they're on their mark this year and they are able to avoid some key injuries, Stroman, if he can stay healthy, J. Happ, who's had some bad luck. I mean, a lot of these guys, and their bullpen is good too. Roberto Ozuna in the bullpen is a good closer, and it takes a lot of pressure off these starters knowing, hey, if I go 7, I got a guy coming in the 8th and 9th who's going to be able to shut the door. I'll pin them around 86 wins, maybe a little less, maybe around 83. But Orioles, they got Jonathan Schoop and Chris Davis, Manny Machado. They got some guys who can hit. They can hit the long ball, but I just don't think they're really a complete team. I don't think their pitching's that good. And I'll mark them around 77 wins. And I can't even believe the Tampa Bay Rays, some of the moves they made. Got a lot of good prospects in some of their deals, but some of them were head scratchers. I don't understand why they DFA'd Corey Dickerson. I think they could have gotten a lot more than what they bargained for, but I'll give them around 65 wins.
I gave them the thing with the Rays. I mean, there were some moves that I understood, like Longoria being traded. I mean, that's been rumored since 2014, actually since 2013. The Dickerson move, like if they were going to trade him, I don't understand why you would have designated him for assignment, because then you would have had much more flexibility of what you could have done there.
Well, the one thing with Longoria is, he was their highest paid player, especially at third base. He was making so much money. So I can get the big news around Tampa Bay is they're moving. They're moving to a new stadium. Okay, but first of all, how are they going to get the money to build this new stadium that's being projected from $800 to $900 million? Well, the Rays only have to pay $180 million of that. So what way are they going to get that money? Not through attendance, because their attendance has been so bad the last recent years because they're not contending. Let's cut our big players. Let's cut them where we can make trades where we don't need to get high value prospects, but we can get it where the other teams pay the contracts. Because in a lot of trades, some teams will still pay for other players' contracts a certain portion, where now it's going to be, hey, we're going to dump this on you guys. We're going to let you have this portion of the contract. You have the 99% of it. We'll pay so much of it. So it's just sad to see, 2008 through 2014 and was some magical stuff. But, I mean, they're about to go back to kind of their usual ways, you can say, from the early to mid-2000s, where they won't be, like, so bad. We're like, oh, they're only going to win 50 games. But they're not going to be really a contender as well.
They are very fortunate to being this their 20th year, because I've stated many times when they're losing, they might as well just wear Devil Rays uniforms, because that's how they were playing. And it looks that way. Let's go to the next division, the AL Central. I have in the AL Central, I have the Cleveland Indians. Not really a big surprise there, winning it by at least in triple digits. 100 games, 62 losses. It's not really a matter of the Indians not winning the division. It's more or less them how they'll do in the postseason. We'll get to that later. But I have the Indians. I mean, that is still a stacked team. You know, top to bottom. You got Lindor, Encarnacion. You got Corey Kluber winning another Cy Young. Miller in the pen. That is a very dangerous team. And, you know, if they, didn't be, Cleveland Indians last year and choke away another lead, if they can avoid choking another series lead, they could very well go deep into the postseason. But again, we'll get to that. In second place, I have the Minnesota Twins. I'll give them 88 wins. And that one, they definitely had a very good year. They were definitely the Cinderella team last year, even though they were bounced out by the Yankees in the wild card. But I'll give the Twins 88 wins. They still have some good team. I do believe Miguel Sano could be one of the most dangerous power bats in the AL, right up there to possibly David Ortiz in the future. To how people were threatened with David Ortiz, that's how they are with Miguel Sano.
And one of the things to look at with the Twins is they have a pretty young lineup. Mauer's 34. They got Brian Dozier. He's 30 years old. But then after that, their next oldest age in the starting lineup was 27 last year with Robbie Grossman. He's 27 years old. And one of the guys that I'm looking at is Eddie Rosario. He kind of flew under the radar last year. He's only 25 years old, or going into 26 years old. He had 290 last year with 27 home runs and 78 RBIs, and he played in 151 games. Sano last year only played in 114 games, hit 264, kind of your typical power hitter, walked 54 times, had 173 strikeouts, but it hit 28 home runs in that 114 game span. So if you put those two guys together, it could be a deadly lineup. I will mark them around the same as you, around 88 wins. I could see that. I think, their pitching has to come together. It was a Cinderella team, like you said, last year, because they didn't have that good of pitching. But they were able to win still. That was the most important thing. But Indians are first for me as well. I think they had a big loss. Carlos Santana going to the Phillies is a big loss for them. That's a big loss in their lineup. And they signed a couple of guys. They signed Yonder Alonso, or made a deal for him to come play for the Indians, to play first base. But, comparing Santana to Alonso's kind of been, he's a huge prospect, but he's kind of been a journeyman, while Santana was an established player with the Indians. And I think that hurts Encarnacion a lot. But they saw some good guys in the lineup. Lonnie Chisenhall, I like. Jason Kipnis.
Lindor.
Tyler Naquin. Francisco Lindor. So they're still have a good team. And, of course, their bullpen's going to be good with Andrew Miller. So let's go on to the rest of the Central, Ian.
Yes. In third place, I have the Chicago White Sox. I'll give them, kind of look at them the same way with the Blue Jays. I'll give them 82 wins, 80 losses. They're not going to have, compared to where they were the past pretty much decade in 2010s, they'll have they will show progress, I believe. They have a lot of prospects in their farm system that I think will finally hit their stride, especially with Jose Abreu, who I do believe is potentially being another very dangerous power hitter in the AL Central, right up there with possibly Miguel Sano. But the problem with the White Sox is it's going to come down to pitching again. Pitching-wise, I mean, losing Sale, last year, that one hurt them, because that was really their only stable pitcher. Everyone else is very inconsistent, and the only other pitcher I was thinking of was Quintana, but, he's with the Cubs now. So it's going to come down to pitching with them, but I think they'll, at least hitting and with their prospects, they will show progress this year. Fourth place, I have the Kansas City Royals, 74 wins, 88 losses. Same thing that plagued a lot of teams this year. They just had to dump everybody. Hosmer, who was it? Hosmer or Moustakas who went to the Padres?
Hosmer. He left to go to the Padres.
Hosmer went to the Padres, and they lost a lot of guys. They did get Mike Moustakas back, and surprisingly cheap because it was such a lull period this winter. But I'll give them 74 wins, 88 losses. And in last place, I'll get the Detroit Tigers, 69 wins and 93 losses. Besides Miguel Cabrera, who is, you can kind of see age might be catching up to him a bit. It is not really a whole lot for the Tigers. There.
Yeah, I really, we're about in the same boat for the way our division stands. The only two I have flip-flopped is the Royals and White Sox. I don't know much. I mean, not much about what we're talking about. I'm saying, I don't know much to say with the Tigers there. I mean, without Miguel Cabrera, he's been injured so many times. They're really bad, and even with him, they're still really bad. I think they're gonna end up having possibly the worst record in baseball. Not the Miami Marlins or the Tampa Bay Rays. I think some of these teams are going to struggle the way they did the same thing last year. They got rid of a lot of players.
Yeah.
Still have Victor Martinez in the lineup. He's a good hitter, but he's also getting very old now. And, they got some decent pitchers. But let's go to the Royals and White Sox. I have the Royals finishing third because even while losing Hosmer, I think they still have better pitching than the White Sox. And their lineup, for the most part, has stayed intact. They lose Hosmer, huge loss. They lose Lorenzo Cain, huge loss. But they got John Jay, who had a pretty good year with the Cubs last year. He wasn't a full-time center fielder, but he was a good platoon guy. He was able to do pretty well with the bat. Moustakas signed him back. That's a huge signing, I think.
Especially for how cheap they got him.
Yeah, for how cheap they got him. He was asking for a lot of money. They were able to sign him back for much cheaper than what he wanted, and that was good for them. And I think Salvador Perez could still have a big year. I mean, I think they're still a better ball club than the White Sox. The White Sox are young. They're still trying to figure some stuff out. But I do agree with Jose Abreu. I think he's going to be someone to watch this season. I think he could have another monster season like he's had in the past. And I think this bottom central, I think the White Sox and the Royals will win around close to similar games. I think I'll put the Royals around 82 wins. And I'll put the White Sox around 80. And I'll give the Tigers 57. I think they are really in a lot of trouble.
That's really lowballing them. All right, let's move on to the AL West. And the AL West, once again, no really surprise with this one. I have the Houston Astros with 103 wins, 59 losses, because this team is deadly. We have not seen a team like this in a while. Even with past World Series teams, I mean, there's usually hype after a World Series team. We saw that, with the Royals. We thought they were going to win a bunch of titles. We even saw it with the, really going back with the Arizona Diamondbacks. When they won a World Series, many people thought they were on their way to another dynasty. But with the Astros, here's the difference between all those other World Series champion teams. The Astros payroll, they have been beyond smart with how they've signed players. They have not really reached with their signings. They've depended on the draft, and for the most part, they have, no pun intended, headed out of the ballpark with all their prospects. And you have probably the most dangerous lineup, not counting the Yankees in the AL, and in my opinion, probably the best rotation, and not only the AL, but probably all of the league. Especially, Verlander, Keuchel, definitely Cy Young candidates right there. So I have them winning the division by a couple games.
Yeah, I like them too. They're obviously my favorite to win the West. This rotation just got so much better this offseason. Bringing in Garrett Cole too from the Pirates, who's kind of struggled to find himself. He came up, he was lighting up radar guns. He was very electric, but he's kind of lost his way the last couple of seasons. Had some injuries. I think he's going to have a very big season, though. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he's a sleeper for anyone out there who wants to maybe pick someone up who's thinking, middle rotation guy. He's projected to be their number 3 behind Verlander and Keuchel. I think I'm so confident in him, especially with this lineup backing him up. I honestly believe he could go on to win 20 games this season. Now, I don't know about ERA. I don't know about losses, but with the way the offense is and the way his stuff is, if he's able to stay healthy, I could easily see him with 20 wins.
The one thing I will say about Garrett Cole, I think he does work better as a middle rotation guy than he does an ace. And we see that a lot with a lot of pitchers. Sometimes they just spot better when they're in third man called up. I do believe Garrett Cole. I mean, again, when he was with Pittsburgh, he had a lot of pressure because he was their ace, and that's a lot of pressure to deal with. But I do believe, especially like we said, the lineup backing him up, that Garrett Cole as a 3, even maybe 4 guy, I think he'll do much better in that part of the rotation than he would maybe as a ace pitcher.
Yeah, the projection for the back end of the rotation too is, Lance McCullers going in as the number 4, and then Charlie Morton as the number 5. Charlie Morton kind of being a journeyman through the MLB, going to different teams. I remember watching him when he had a very big season with the Pirates. It was a long time. It was probably around 2010 or 11, and he was talking. He said, who I mimicked my mechanics after? Roy Halladay. He said, and that was the biggest change in my career. When I was in the majors trying to do my own thing, I was not able to get these batters out. They were too good for me. But then I got my mechanics fluid. I started going with the delivery of Roy Halladay, and that was able to get me to be able to locate better and to locate against better hitters when I needed to, and especially my off-speed pitches. So I think that is a big guy to watch. Morton went 14-7 last year with a 3.62 ERA. So think about that in the back of your rotation as your number 5. Your number 5 won 14 games. He only loses 7, and he ends with a 3.62 ERA, where in most cases a number 5 is ending with an above 4 ERA, and he's borderline 10-11 wins. I mean, that just shows how good this rotation is with the Astros, and I think they're going to end up not only having the best, I think they still will have the best offense in the American League, not home runs. I think the Yankees will be able to take that, but I think they'll have the best overall offense. And I also think they'll actually have the best overall pitching, too. I think their pitching is just so good top to bottom. Keuchel had some injuries last year. If he can stay healthy the full season, I'd love to see what he can do. He's obviously has some great stuff. Verlander, too, another guy. He's getting older, but you saw when he came and played with the Astros last season, especially in the postseason. He looked like his old dominant self. And I think going to Houston really rejuvenated his career. I really think he's in a place he wants to play, and he's excited to go and play and wear an Astros jersey, and I think he's another guy who can have a very big season. Plus, not having the pressure of being an ace, not having that pressure of, hey, we're going to rely on you to win this big game. Now, obviously, he's getting a pitcher where they can rely on him, but they have options to go to Keuchel, and they have options to go to Cole as well. So I think it's going to help all 3 of those pitchers actually go through this rotation.
It also helps that now with the Astros, especially with their World Series run and them being in the postseason 3 years in a row, all of their homegrown guys, actually almost all of their players now, especially like the ones they picked up, have postseason experience.
Yeah, that's huge.
So they have big game experience.
That is really huge. Honestly, having guys who can deal with that situation, deal with that pressure. That's one of the things you look at a lot of teams. It really is a big difference maker. And that's what I'm saying for the Yankees and Red Sox. Everyone wants to just go out and pick, look, Yankees and Red Sox. Look at these teams. They both have first-year managers. Washington Nationals, first-year manager. That's a big difference. And let's look at the Red Sox. They have Alex Cora. And the Yankees with Aaron Boone, they've never managed a game before in the big leagues. They've never managed in a postseason game. They've been there. They've played there. But it's a lot different from playing and managing. Now, one coach who's made a great transition was Dave Roberts. He has done a great job taking over the Dodgers after Don Mattingly was fired. He looked like he was there doing it for 30-plus years. But you don't know how every manager will go into that role. You don't know how they're going to be able to react to it. So I think, one of the things they have is experience, like you were saying. And I think that's huge, too. And I think they have a great manager and a great lineup. And I think they'll end up winning the most games in the American League. I'll put them at 103, and I think they can even get up to 110 if they really play their best baseball.
That's going up to like 2001 Mariners.
Yeah, I mean, they have the potential to.
All right, next one. In second place, I have the Anaheim Angels, Los Angeles, whatever the hell you call them. I have the Angels. I'll give them 90 wins and 72 losses this year for the simple fact that if Trout stays healthy, I think Trout is at this part of his career where he could literally carry a team. He is that good. We saw him in person. I've seen him twice, but we saw him in person last year. And the scary thing with Trout, he makes it look so easy. Like it's like when we saw him hit easy triple, like it was a second triple. It was like he wasn't even trying. So yeah. I have the Angels with 90 wins, and then the obvious Tony.
Shohei Ohtani. It's a tongue twister. Yeah, I have the Angels finishing second as well, but I don't believe the hype. They've been so overhyped since they signed Pujols and they signed Josh Hamilton. And I just think they're going to continue on that. Shohei Ohtani hasn't even played in a major league game. And very few Japanese players have really transitioned to the MLB and been successful. Now, you can point out guys like Ichiro. Well, Ichiro's going to go down as one of the greatest players to ever live. He's going to end with over 5,000 hits in both the MLB and in Japan. You can look at Yu Darvish. He came from the Japanese league.
Hideki Matsui.
Yeah, Hideki Matsui, another guy. But then you think there's so many other players who came over who were only good for 1 or 2 seasons. Ching-Ming Wong, Tate Bake with the Boston Red Sox. Guys who came over from an Asian league or somewhere else and were only able to sustain success for 1 year because teams were able to figure him out. So I think Shohei Ohtani, he'll be all right. I don't see him as anything special. I'll put them at probably around 87 wins, 87, 86. But you're right with Trout. He is so good. If he can just have a complete healthy season, he could carry them to winning many more games. But it was actually funny last year when he was out, they actually won more games without him. I think their record in the first 60 games with him, they were about, it was like 29 and 31, and then without him, they went about 34 and 20 or something like that. So obviously, he's a difference maker. I'm not trying to say he isn't, but they still have some good replacements. So 87 wins is about where I'm going to go with that.
I will say with Ohtani, there's one potential thing that the Angels could do that can completely mess up his potential. The Angels need to decide if they're going to have him as a pitcher or as a hitter. You cannot have both in the major league.
Yeah, the Rays drafted Brendan McKay this last season as their first overall pick, and they're saying, hey, we're going to experiment. We're going to let him pitch, and we're going to let him hit. These guys are professional athletes, and that's fine. Shohei Ohtani has been doing it his whole career in Japan. But you want to sustain him. You want him to be able to play at a high level for a long time, and it's a lot more stress when you have to pitch and hit. So all the days, think if he was a starter, one day he pitches, 4 days he's going to hit, he's going to play. Well, people are saying only a DH. Well, DH still has to run the bases. DH still has to hit. DH can get hit by a pitch. There's a lot of things that can happen, a lot of different variables. Then you're saying, well, then he gets pitched. What about their work during the regular, during the day? These guys practice all the time. Where are you going to make? Unless he goes really that early to go throw a bullpen and then go hit, throw a bullpen, and go and hit. Yeah, this. I think you're right. I think you're spot on with that. I think they really should decide whether, hey, we want to make you a full-time pitcher, and or we want to make you a full-time hitter. I'm just gonna take my guess now. I think he's gonna become a pitcher. I don't think he's gonna stay a position player. I think it's a huge transition. He only hit around the 290s in the Japanese league, which, if you know anything about that league, it's all about power. So, guys, Eric Thames went over and played in Korea, which is a little lower than Japan, but he hit like 390 with like 70 home runs, 60. It's like ridiculous. So I think he's going to be a pitcher because those hitters, the good hitters, are still pretty good in Japan. And I think he can transition that to the major league level and help the Angels, who actually need help in their rotation rather than being an average hitter.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, because you cannot overwork someone, because we've seen consequences of that. Look at a good example, even though, also with steroids with Jose Canseco, Rangers had him pitching a few games, but, he kind of broke down, and, the steroids didn't help either. But if the Angels want to keep him, they need to decide whether he's going to be a pitcher or a hitter. You cannot have both. If he was in the National League, there would be much more of a conversation there. Mm-hmm. But you're in the American League, and you have a DH. You cannot have both, obviously.
I totally agree.
And coming in, finishing out the AOS third place, I have the Seattle Mariners. I'll give them 80 plus wins. I got him at 84. Maybe reconsidering at least somewhere in the 80s, mid 80 wins. And then in fourth place, the Texas Rangers and A's. These are going to be really the bottom dwellers this year. I have Texas 71 wins, 91 losses, and the A's 70 wins, 90 losses.
Yeah, I agree. This is my same three. Felix Hernandez going down this spring, get hit by a line drive. That's changes someone. Getting hit, that people get scared. Look at Alex Cobb and Jay Happ, how they had to bounce back from it. They say they still can have nightmares and stuff about that. It's very scary, and I think Felix will be able to bounce back, but he's getting old too, and he's kind of been struggling the last couple of seasons. He hasn't looked like the Felix Hernandez of old, where he was really dominating. And I think it's hard when you have not that much of an offensive team to just try to carry them with pitching, especially when really who else in the rotation do you have is James Paxton. You can look, they have Nate Carnes and they have Erasmo Ramirez, but are these guys going to really carry the team if you get hurt? No, they can put together a good start here and there, but the two guys they have that are their best pitchers are Felix and Paxton. I think it's a lot of pressure on him. I'll put them around 82 wins. The Rangers, it's basically the same team they've had the last 3 years. They have Cole Hamels, who, when he's on, he can be one of the best pitchers in baseball. And I think he's going to have a good season. I'll put him around 15 wins. The thing about the Rangers, they can surprise you, is they can go from having a down season to, having a huge season right after that. And it's kind of been down since Ron Washington left. But made the playoff, I think it was 2 years ago, or when was it?
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
They made it 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row, yeah. And I after Hamilton left, when he was on his tour run, and Ian Kinsler, they kind of just fell apart. And they were able to still put together some good seasons, but they may be known as a boxing organization more than they are of a baseball organization with Rougned Odor. But I think you're going to win around 77 games. And Athletics, they have some talent. They have zero pitching. I'll put them around 70 wins.
They're definitely going to the whole rebuilding thing, just trading for prospects. We saw that at the trade deadline last year, and they traded Sonny Gray for the Yankees' top prospects and stuff. So these are definitely, at least with the A's and many other teams, those are teams you would pin for possibly 4 or 5 years in the future. Maybe their prospects will pan through.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
All right, so now let's move to the National League. And let's start in the NL East. And I think we agree the weakest division in baseball. NL East, not really much of a discussion here. I got the Nationals. 95 wins, 68 losses. Literally, they should just be giving the division to them because there was nothing else there besides the Nationals.
Yeah, I have the Nationals coming in first as well. I think they have really great pitching. They have Strasburg at the top of the rotation, and they have Max Scherzer, who won Cy Young last year, another great arm, and their offense is very explosive, when they get hot. Anthony Rendon and Bryce Harper are a great mix together, so I think they're going to have another big season. Trey Turner, fast guy, great contact hitter, has a little bit of pop, but more known for his speed and his ability to get on base. So I agree they're going to go at the top of the division. I have them around 93 wins, 93, 94.
I did have the Nats at 95 wins. And credit, not to discredit the Nationals for being in the NL East. They are definitely a very good team. But I think it'll be a similar thing as it was last year, where there wasn't no really NL East team was really competing. I will say in second place, I will give the Philadelphia Phillies second place. I gave them around 79 wins or 78 wins because we've seen their prospects. And the good news with the Phillies is that historically they've been very good with their prospects. Mm-hmm. We saw that when they were on the World Series run, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins. And we're seeing guys like that. Scott Canary, we saw Roman Quinn. That was another top prospect.
J.P. Crawford, another guy who's coming up in the infield. And I'm not ready to give them second place yet. I have them finishing third in my NL East prediction. I have the Mets. And hear me out. I think the Mets are going to be an interesting team this year. You look at their lineup, well, they don't have that bad of a lineup, actually. You have Cespedes in there. Jay Bruce, who just had a big season last season. Adrian Gonzalez, who's kind of been bouncing around. He's been injured with the Dodgers. He went to the Red Sox, then he went to the Dodgers. He's never been like himself when he was in San Diego. But, when he's hot, I think they've upgraded some positions. I think Gonzalez is definitely an upgrade from when they had Lucas Duda playing first base. Todd Frazier, they haven't gotten much out of third base with David Wright, sadly, who's been injured. It's really been stopping him from reaching the full potential of his career, who was a guy who looked like on pace to be maybe one of the best third basemen to ever play, who just was hit with something unfortunate. But I like Frazier at third base for them, especially since he's been in New York. Travis d'Arnaud behind the plate. Asdrubal Cabrera at second. I think these guys are good. But I like their rotation.
I will say the rotation.
Their rotation, if they can pitch to their potential, is going to be very good. Noah Syndergaard, obviously their ace. He's a great pitcher, and he has a live arm. Then you go to Jacob deGrom, number 2. Oh, wow, another great pitcher right there. How about Jason Vargas, who had a breakout season last year with the Kansas City Royals? And Matt Harvey. Well, Harvey hasn't been himself.
He's got to find his way.
If he finds his way, he's able to figure out what he used to be able to do and be able to bring that repeated success to that rotation. That can arguably one of the best rotations in baseball. Not just the NL East, in all of baseball. Because then you have 3 guys who are back at the top who are potential aces. And then you have Jason Vargas, who would be your number 4, who had a great season last year. And then you have Steven Matz. He kind of comes in. He's a hard-throwing lefty, number 5 of the rotation. But, I like him as well. He's young. He needs to really dial his command in. That's the thing is, a lot of these people, we saw with the Rays last year, the hard-throwing lefty with Blake Snell, was they struggle with their command. They're not able to find the strike zone. And I think for a major league player, you have to be able to find the strike zone first and foremost. Unless you're throwing around 100, 97 to 100 consistently, and you have good enough off speed, you got to be able to locate better. But Vargas last year, think about this as your number 4. 18-11 with a 4.16 ERA. I would want that number 4 over any other number 4 except for maybe Lance McCullers from the Houston Astros.
There's a lot of players on the Astros teams would want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I think the Mets, if they're able to get hot, could do something special. Now, I'm not going to say that they're going to contend for this division, but depending on how everything, you can't just really give stuff away due to injuries and stuff, but I want to see if they could maybe shake up this wild card going into this next season.
I have, you kind of talked me in. I'll have the Mets. I have the Mets at 3rd. I kind of lowballed them a bit. I only give them 72 wins, but you kind of talked me into it. I'll give them 78 wins and stuff like that. There's still, the problem is that the players matched the team. They were very inconsistent. The only really consistent player they did have was Yoenis Cespedes. And that was the problem. Like, guys like d'Arnaud did not have a good year last year. Actually, ever since 2015, guys like d'Arnaud haven't really hit their stride.
They've struggled. No, they've definitely struggled for sure. But, I have the Mets. I'll give them around. I'll make 2 projections here. If they're playing at their full potential baseball, I can fully see them winning around 87, 88 games. If they play like they have been playing the last couple of years, I'll give them around 79 wins. Phillies, I have 3rd. Gabe Kapler comes in as the new manager. He has everyone on a workout program. And I think the thing that's hard for them is, yes, they just signed Jake Arrieta. Huge signing.
Definitely.
They have Aaron Nola, who's at the top of the rotation. They are probably going to have him as their ace. Then they have Arrieta as their number 2. But then kind of after that, it's just a bunch of young guys, They got to find their identity, I think, for them. They got to be able to figure out what kind of team they're going to be. Are they going to be this trying to contend team after getting Carlos Santana and Jake Arrieta? Or are they going to be this, we're still in rebuild mode? They have a lot of great prospects, but if they could easily contend if they trade away these prospects. So it's more of a budget issue whether they want to pay these players or not. Because they went and signed these guys. You could easily sign trade Roman Quinn or a couple other guys for some pitching, but I feel like they're gearing more towards something special, kind of like the Astros were. But it just kind of makes me think, though, why with the Arrieta signing, why with the Santana deal, why would you want to make this stuff if you're trying to still get this rebuild mode? But they could surprise some people. I'll put them down, I think, around 83 wins. This is 83.
This is the thing with the Phillies, too, is that I do see them. They are very close. Very close. They are missing just a few pieces, and I think they have those pieces. They just need to form together with the players, and that's the prospects. The prospects, I think I saw a thing on top 50, the top 10 prospects, the majority of them were on the Phillies. Yeah. And this is the thing. I don't believe the Phillies, we saw it again, like I mentioned, with their World Series run in the late 2000s, is that they really depend on their farm system and their prospects. Like I said, Chase Utley, Jamie Rollins, Ryan Howard. So I do believe they're just, I think the Arrieta signing particularly was pretty much telling us we are very close to done for rebuilding, and we're very close to getting ready to go off into contention.
Well, yeah, no franchise wants to go through a period where they're like, hey, we're not trying to win ball games. I mean, every team wants to go out and compete, especially every manager, because it's kind of unfair to some managers who are going out there and, these are the cards you're dealt with. We expect you to win or else you're going to get fired. That's just not the case. Kevin Cash right now, I think, has such a tough job in Tampa Bay, and same with the manager in Miami, same with Gabe Kapler in Philadelphia. Granted, Gabe has more talent to work with than some of the other teams, but I think about Ron Gardenhire in Detroit, another guy. Look at what kind of talent does he have there? Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez, Miguel Cabrera is 34, so he's technically past his prime, but he's still going to, I think, be a good hitter. They got Victor Martinez, who's old. So I think it's a lot of pressure on these managers. That's what I'm talking about, the difference between a first-year manager and an experienced veteran manager. But I can definitely see the Phillies doing something. Maybe they may put something special together, but Jared Eichhoff has already gone down, who was a starter for them last year. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. So I don't see them making this huge breakthrough, but I agree. They're on the cusp. They're getting close to it, and they're getting close to being out of this rebuild and, hey, we're ready to win mentality.
Yeah, definitely. And coming in the bottom of the division, I have Atlanta Braves at 4th. So they're still trying to figure some stuff out. 71 wins, 91 losses is where I'm projecting them. And at the very bottom is the team I project with the worst record, and I think a lot of people are doing that. The Miami Marlins with only 52 wins, and I am projecting 110 or more losses because, if we thought the Rays were bad, Derek Jeter came in and gutted that team with nothing but a machete. He literally went in a surgery, and he didn't just use a scalpel. He used a full-blown machete.
Yeah, if you just look at it, you want to talk about two teams have been plagued this whole offseason by controversy. You start off with the Atlanta Braves firing their GM and a bunch of their scouting personnel because of the international signees and them breaking the MLB rules with how they were signing their players. That hurts them for the future because those guys who are could be potentially great players in the future had to be given away, or they had to go back to being in the international free agent pool.
I feel like the Braves are literally right now have to press the rebuild button on their rebuild button.
Yeah, they're almost rebuilding on their rebuild, and it almost kind of feels like I'm watching college athletics where they're like, hey, you just violated these rules, so this is the punishment. It's almost like they lost scholarships or something, but in this terms, it's dollars and cents. It's even more important. Probably not cents. I don't think these guys are getting cents. I don't think anyone that has a $15 million contract with 1 penny.
2 cents.
Yeah, with two pennies in there. But I agree, they're going to come in 4th. Miami Marlins, they're going to come in 5th. Another team plagued with controversy. The Players Union going against Derek Jeter on why they're trying to do this and going at him saying, you guys aren't even trying to win. You're not even trying to win. And, I think maybe that's one of the moves you could say the Phillies look, but the Phillies actually are legitimate. Like, they could legitimately make something happen if they get hot. They get maybe some prospects pitching and able to do some of their bullpen a little bit, that they can make some kind of run. The Marlins have no one. They literally gutted themselves. Yelich, gone. Stanton, gone. It is so mind-boggling watching them. It's going to be mind-boggling watching them, seeing how this team is going to play. Because they literally do not have that much talent. Marcell Ozuna, outfielder, great player. Cardinals.
Yeah.
JT Realmuto, maybe Justin Bour. Those guys aren't too bad. But it's been a huge controversy. I can't wait for this to go in the past. Controversy around baseball is never fun. Going through the whole steroid era with everything, and now, it's a new day and age. It's about money. It's always been about money, but it's really, really big about money now. You can see by how high these players are getting paid.
Yeah, I will say it is a huge shame with the Marlins because they were so close.
Another guy, D. Gordon.
Yeah, D. Gordon.
Seattle Mariners now. He's going to be transitioning to center field.
It was such a shame with the Marlins because we saw them in 2016, especially in 2017. They had potential postseason outlook. I will say, and a lot of Marlins players have said it too, the franchise really changed when Jose Fernandez passed away. When that happened, everything changed.
There wasn't really anyone to build upon after that because Stanton, you knew, was going to ask for a lot of money. But the thing about Fernandez was, he was Cuban. And people may say, well, what does Cuban have to do with anything? Well, the Miami area is a huge Cuban community.
Yeah, especially with, we've seen that in the past with Hernandez.
From people who have left Cuba and fled Cuba to come seek safety in America. And one of the things about that is Jose really embraced the community, and they embraced him. His family was able to come to live in Miami. There's so many stories about him having to jump off a boat and save his mom when they were leaving Cuba, and him not being able to make it, 3 times, and then eventually going to Alonzo High School in Tampa. It was the perfect story that just sadly had a tragic ending, and that's when that whole club decided to change. And I just think bad ownership too.
Oh yeah.
I think they got hit by the hype bug. They built that new stadium. Oh gosh, how many years has it been now?
2012 was their first year.
2012. And remember they signed Mark Burley and a couple other big names.
Jose Reyes.
Yeah, and it just didn't pan out. They just didn't pan out.
It also hurt, and another one that that hurt, and I do agree, it did change when Jose Fernandez died. Was also that was one of their Stanton and Fernandez. Those were the 2 guys they put all their eggs in the basket and were like, this is who we're building around. They put all their money in the big contracts with Stanton and Fernandez, and obviously with Fernandez gone, you're just left with Stanton, and really, what are you going to do there?
Yeah, there was nothing for him to do there. I think, they got rid of Stanton. They were just trying to dump payroll, and they got rid of everyone. They got some guys who are still all right. Derek Dietrich isn't bad. JT Realmuto, Justin Bohr, but
it's a far cry from
I don't see the Marlins being able to contend for at least 5 years. It's that bad. It's almost going to be how the Astros were before they got good, where they were on a 3-year span where it's like, are these guys ever going to be good again? But let's go over to the Central now, because this is, to me, the most interesting division.
I have them this is the one I was going to say. This is the most competitive division. In first place, I have the St. Louis Cardinals barely by 1 game at 94 wins and 68 losses. I have them winning the Central based on all those free agent signings you got, as you mentioned, Ozuna with the Cardinals, but also you got veterans like Yadier Molina, you got Adam Wainwright pitching, you got Colton Wong, and especially Dexter Fowers really sets the tone there. You have a lot of good players there. So I have the Cardinals winning the division I have the Cardinals winning the division barely. It's going to be a close race. In second place, I have the Milwaukee Brewers, especially with their prospects that have really been panning out well for them. And with them getting Christian Yelich and many other players in this offseason, I have them at 93 wins, 67 losses. And then coming in at third place, I have the Chicago Cubs with 91 wins and 71 losses. Because for the most part, yes, the Cubs have lost some integral pieces, but they're still a very good team there. You got, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez. You definitely have a good team right there. So those are my top 3 teams for the Central.
Yeah, this is where we've been the most different. Is I have the Cubs finishing first place. I think they're going to win around 96 games. I think adding Yu Darvish is going to be very big. I think he's going to have a very big bounce back season. I think he's going to have a great season with the Cubs. And I look at this rotation and think, well, they still have some great arms in there. Jose Quintana's their number 4. When Jose Quintana, who was an ace a year ago, is your number 4, you have a pretty good rotation. Kyle Hendricks is going to have a comeback season. He had a down season compared to the year he had 2 years ago. So I think they're going to have a great team. I think their lineup is still really good. Ian Happ, I think, is going to have a big year. I think a lot of people are going to sleep on him. I think a full season with him in center field there, he's going to be able to do something. Kyle Schwarber, coming back, he looks like he's in the best shape of his life. Or he is in the best shape of his life. I think he could have another big season, too, playing left field. But then after that, I have the Cardinals finishing second. I have them around 92 wins. They're going to be a very competitive team this year as well. But I just don't see them getting over the hump and being able to take down the Cubs just yet. I think they have all right pitching. Wainwright's been hurt the last couple of seasons, but they have him projected as their number 2. Carlos Martinez is going to be their number 1. They have Michael Wacha. So some pretty good players. But I don't have them taking over the Cubs yet. And then I have the Brewers finishing third with around 90 wins. And I think that they have a great offense, but they don't have that much pitching yet.
Sure.
I don't think they have the rotation to get over both these teams the way the Cardinals and the Cubs play. I think they're both fundamentally sound teams, but I don't think that the Brewers are there yet, and they need to get a little more pitching before I can say that. But I have them finishing third around 88 wins. And I'm just going to go through the rest of the Central because when you get to the bottom, I mean, you have two teams. It's just rebuilding. I have the Pirates finishing fourth. They still have some talent, even though they got rid of Garrett Cole and Andrew McCutchen and a couple other players. And then I have the Reds finishing fifth. The only player that I really like out of that is Joey Votto. I think Joey is a great hitter. I think he's one of the most underrated hitters in the game.
I just flipped the last place teams. I had the Reds, 82 wins, 80 losses. Definitely Joey Votto is the best player on their team, I believe. I have the Pittsburgh Pirates. I could have them 77, but you know what? I'm going to go them 73, 74. I'm going to give them a few less wins because they're definitely in rebuild mode, and we saw that they in it with McCutchen, Cole gone. They're definitely in rebuilding mode right now.
Okay, and yeah, I know I agree with you. Both these teams are in rebuild mode. The Pirates, it's really sad to see because they were building something truly special. Now it's just kind of like it's almost going to be like forgotten. They made it to the wild card a couple times. They were never really able to make it past it.
They just couldn't get over the hump.
They just couldn't get over it. Now it almost looks like start from square one. I mean, they got rid of all their best players, dumped a bunch of payroll, and I think that's the two biggest things this offseason we can say is what have the two biggest things been this offseason? Dumping a payroll from teams, new managers.
Definitely. And we're going to wrap up our division predictions here, and we'll finish off with the NL West. I have, again, not really a surprise here, I got the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'll give them 101 wins, 100-plus wins this year. I mean, that is still a very dangerous team, especially with their prospects. Cody Bellinger had one of the most incredible rookie years. Actually, both rookies, Judge and Bellinger, had one of the most incredible years last year. You got Clayton Kershaw, who, if healthy, is no doubt the best pitcher in the world. And, you have a very dangerous team. That is still a very contending team with the Dodgers. Second place, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks. I got them with 90 wins. You have Zach Greinke, couldn't remember his name. You got Zach Greinke, anchoring the rotation, but you have, of course, Paul Goldschmidt at first base, who you said many times is one of the most underrated players in baseball.
I really think he is my favorite player to watch in baseball, not only because he's a big first baseman, but he's able to run too. I think that's something that is finally coming back to the MLB. I was talking with Buck Martinez, the announcer with the Blue Jays, and Dan Schulman, who announced with the Blue Jays, is how speed is coming back to the MLB. It was kind of going to power, a non-steroid power age, but now it's a good mix where there's a lot of power guys, but hey, there's a lot of speed coming too. And, I like that. And you look at guys like Goldschmidt who could steal 20, maybe up to 30 bases. Jose Altuve,
Mike Trout.
Yeah, Mike Trout. I mean, Altuve, guy's 5'5". He can steal up to 60 bases.
With ease.
With ease. And he hit over 20 home runs last year while hitting 340 or whatever. He hit with over 200 hits.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good time to watch baseball, and I think Paul Goldschmidt is often overlooked with how many great players there are. And I think he is honestly one of the best players in baseball, and I could legitimately say I personally think he is the best first baseman in all of baseball.
I
think so. I think Joey Votto is the second best hitting first baseman. There's a lot of arguments between people, but I have the Dodgers finishing first in this division. I have them winning 99 games. I have the Diamondbacks finishing second. I have them at 93. And then going through the rest. Don't sleep on the Giants. I think they can make a wild card push. They have a great lineup. I think Longoria is going to have the best year of his career because he's going to have the protection of Buster Posey and Andrew McCutchen. And people may say, well, these guys are getting kind of older, The Giants haven't had a team that have had 3 All-Stars and 3 – I mean, these were the faces of these franchises. Longoria, the face of the Rays, McCutchen, the face of the Pirates, and Posey being the face of the Giants. They've not had a lineup this good. And they have Hunter Pence coming back, who could have a bounce-back season. So I could easily see them winning into the high 80s as well. But Padres, they got a lot. They did get better this year. You know, Will Myers is going to transition back to the outfield. They got Eric Hosmer. They still don't have much pitching. I have them winning around 81 games. And the Rockies, you know, this was kind of tough because this division is another one that's very competitive. The Rockies had a Cinderella story last year. They were able to make it to the playoffs. I don't see them having that same success, but they could easily end up winning around 81 games as well. And I think Nolan Arenado is the best third baseman in baseball. And obviously playing in Coors Field helps out with their offense a lot.
I have a bit of a shake. I actually have the Rockies at 85 wins in third place, because they're have one of the another great dangerous lineup. You have Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, your 1-2 punch right there. I have the Rockies at third place. I have the Giants coming in at fourth place, mostly for the fact that they're same thing with a lot of these teams is that their pitching isn't really there. Yes, they have Bumgarner, but really there is not a whole lot else there. And yes, you can have guys, like McCutcheon, Posey, and Longoria score runs for you.
And even when Bumgarner came back, he didn't look like the old massive Bumgarner. And you can't have Jeff Samardzija at his age carry your rotation. No. But, especially with that lineup, too. So, go on. What were you saying?
I had Giants at fourth, and almost the same reason with the Padres. I have them at last, 72, 75 wins. Same reason. There's not a whole lot of pitching there. Yes, you have Hosmer and Will Myers. But, again, it's not going to matter a whole lot if, you score 4 runs, but your pitcher gives up 5 in an inning. So, that's my prediction. So let's go now. So we've named all of our teams who we believe will win the division. So let's go to our postseason bracket. So as a little recap here, let's start in the American League. I have the Boston Red Sox winning the American League East, Indians winning the AL Central, and Astros winning the West. And my wild card teams for the wild card game would be the first seed would be the New York Yankees in the wild card, and the second seed would be the Los Angeles Angels. That would be the second wildcard team.
Yep, and I'm pretty much in the same boat with you, just a couple of different changes. I have the Yankees winning the East, the Indians and Astros winning the Central and the West, respectively, as you said as well. But then when I go to the wild card, I have the Red Sox versus the Minnesota Twins. I think the Twins are going to be able to get back there. I like the addition of Logan Morrison in that lineup. That brings a lot of power into their lineup. And I just don't buy the hype between the Angels yet. I still, they only won around 82 games. And the AL West is kind of competing right now to be the lowest division in baseball next to the NL East. I mean, it's kind of a struggle, but that's what I have. The first seed in the wild card, the Red Sox, and the second seed, the Twins.
All right, and now let's go to the National League side. I have in the East, Nationals will win it. And the NL Central would be the Cardinals, and in the NL West, it would be the Dodgers. Also, I meant to mention with the records, there would be the first seed would be the Dodgers with the best record, and then it would go Nationals and then Cardinals in the Central. And my wild card teams would be the Brewers and the Cubs. So there would be 3 NL Central teams in the postseason, and my first seed team would be, and the wild card would be the Brewers, and the second seed team and the wild card would be the Cubs.
Yep, and I'm going to go and stand by this. I think the Brewers are going to get hit by something that hit them last year. I think they're going to have a good season, but just not good enough. So I have the Nationals winning the NL East, the Cubs winning the Central, and the Dodgers winning the West. I have the Dodgers with the best record in the National League. And for the wild card, I think the first wild card I'm going to give is the Cardinals. But then the second, I'm going to give it to the Diamondbacks. I think the Diamondbacks have potential to win a good amount of games. And I'm not going to put down, I gave you kind of a projection earlier for all these teams, what I think they may win. But I still have confidence. 93 was my projection for the Cardinals. I was about 92, 94 with the Diamondbacks. So I haven't been giving specific numbers. I think the Cardinals will end up with a better record than the Diamondbacks, but I think they'll both be in the 90s. It's just going to matter, which one may have that one game advantage. And so that's where I have it rounded out as well.
All right, and let's kind of go into these. Let's start with the wild card on both sides. In the American League wild card, if in that one game winner take all, I have would be in my AL wild card would be the Yankees defeating the Angels. And in the National League side, I would have Chicago, even though they would be, the lower seed in the wild card. I have them beating Milwaukee, mostly for big game experience.
Yep, and going to the AL wild card, I have the Red Sox taking down the Twins. I think the Red Sox are going to have the better team. I like Chris Sale in any big game. He's going to be a great pitcher, and I think that's what the Twins lack is that big game pitcher. And for the NL wild card, this is going to be surprising for a lot of people, but I have the Diamondbacks actually over the St. Louis Cardinals. I think the Diamondbacks are going to make a little bit of a run this year. I think it all depends on their health with their pitching. Greinke's got to stay healthy. Their offense got to stay healthy. But I like Steven Souza in that lineup, and I like the way his ball is going to be elevated in that higher altitude ballpark. He's got a chance to hit over 40 home runs, especially hitting in front of Paul Goldschmidt, which is definitely going to help him see more fastballs.
Definitely. So now let's go into the divisional rounds here. So my divisional round bracket looks like this. So you have the Astros playing the Yankees, and then on the other side would be Boston playing Cleveland once again. And in the divisional series between Houston and New York, I have another great series between the two. But once again, I think the Astros would win it in a Game 5 elimination game. I have the Astros defeating the Yankees 3-2, and then I would have Cleveland once again sweeping Boston. So in my ALCS, it would be Houston and Cleveland.
Yep, what I'm looking at right here is I think the Astros are going to get a good crack from the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are going to put together good pitching. They obviously are going to have a good lineup, but I still don't think that's going to be enough to take the Astros. I'm going to take the Astros 3-1 in that first DS. And I think for the Indians and Yankees, I'm going to go with the Indians. I'm going to have them win in a Game 5 against them.
All right, and let's go to the National League Division side. So mine looks like Chicago against the Los Angeles Dodgers again, and the Washington Nationals against the St. Louis Cardinals. And I have the Dodgers beating the Cubs 3-1, mostly because I believe pitching would just overpower the Chicago. And on the other side, I have the Nationals in Game 5 in an elimination game, defeating the Cardinals 3-2. And finally, Washington will win a playoff series. So my NLCS would be the Nationals against the Dodgers.
Yep, and I have the Dodgers and Diamondbacks in the first playoff game because the Dodgers are going to have the best record in the NL, and the Diamondbacks are my wild card winner. So I'm going to have the Dodgers. I'm going to have them as a sweep. I think that the Diamondbacks are just not on that level yet. It doesn't matter. If they only lose 6 less games in the regular season, I think the Dodgers are just that much better offensively and with pitching. Losing Yu Darvish, even though he struggled last year, still think that's big because he's a lot better than a lot of other pitchers. So, but they still have, obviously, Clayton Kershaw, Kenta Maeda, and a couple others. And Cubs Nationals, I'm going to have the Cubs beating the Nationals 3-2 in a Game 5. And I think it's going to be a very good, tightly contested series. But I still think the Cubs are going to end up having the better team than the Nationals. And I like Joe Maddon's experience in those types of situations compared to the new manager for the Nationals, Davey Martinez. Excuse me.
Yeah. So your NLCS looks like what teams?
Dodgers and Cubs.
Okay.
Dodgers and Cubs are going to be.
So now let's go to the championship series. I have Houston playing against Cleveland, and I'm going to call the upset. And if they play it, I would call in a Game 7 Cleveland beating Houston. It's going to be incredibly close, but I do believe it'll come down to the bullpen, and Andrew Miller will be the difference maker in that.
I think in mine, I like your prediction. I can see something like that happening. Obviously they're two kind of different teams, with the Astros being the powerhouse with all their pitching and hitting. But going to my championship series, I have the Astros versus the Yankees. I think the Astros win 4-2 in the series. I just think the Yankees have the better offense, but realistically, the Astros have much better pitching than they do. They're more in depth. They have a better bullpen as well. And, really you got Betances and Chapman, but that's not going to help you if you're losing games in the later innings. I think their starting rotation is going to shut down. So I have the Astros beating the Yankees 4-2. And I'll just go to the NLCS now. Dodgers, Cubs. This is where I'm calling my upset. I have the Cubs coming back and beating the Dodgers. It's kind of looking like it's leading. The NL's leading to these two teams. I wanted to pick the Nationals to beat the Cubs, but Nationals have just struggled in the playoffs. But I have the Cubs. I think they're going to get some revenges here, but I think it's going to go to Game 7. It's going to be very tightly contested between the two.
All right, and I'll go on my NL side, and I'll call another upset. I will have the Nationals, for the first time in their franchise history, counting them as the Montreal Expos, going to the World Series. They'll defeat the Dodgers and another Game 7. I predict both championship series will go to Game 7, but they'll find a way to beat the Dodgers, mostly by the fact of they have, would be at that point, yes, they have Kenley Jansen in their bullpen, but the hitting, I think, would be just too much for him. So I would have the Nationals beating the Dodgers very closely in Game 7, and my World Series matchup would be between the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Nationals.
Yep, I like that. That's a good World Series. I could see that realistically happening. My World Series matchup is between the Astros and the Cubs, and just going out here, I think the Astros are still simply the best team in baseball. I think their pitching with getting Garrett Cole is just that good this year. I have them beating the Cubs 4-. I'm really on the fence. I'm just going to tell everyone between 4-2 and 4-1, but I realistically see them. It only takes 5 games. I think their pitching is that good, and the Cubs have a good lineup, but I think it's just a different setting. I mean, obviously the Cubs winning a World Series 2 years ago against a good Cleveland rotation, but Cleveland rotation I don't think is anywhere near. I mean, besides Kluber, I don't think they were as good as this Astros rotation. This is a very good rotation we're seeing, and plus, offensively, they've got big bats still. Altuve, Springer, I don't see them losing. I have the Astros over the Cubs 4-1 in the World Series.
All right, and in my World Series matchup between the Indians and the Nationals, I have the Indians finally winning their first World Series title since 1946. They would defeat the Nationals 4-2, mostly because at that point, that would be the best team Washington would have played at that point, especially, and once again, I think Andrew Miller comes in key here in the bullpen that the Washington bats just can't handle. So I would have Cleveland winning the World Series against the Nationals.
Yep, and these are both realistic predictions, I think. Obviously, some people are going to agree, some people are going to disagree, but I like your prediction. I think Cleveland obviously has a chance. They got good pitching. They got good offense. Still don't see him quite being at that level. I think losing Carlos Santana really hurts, and it's going to hurt Encarnacion. But no, I definitely like your predictions, and I think it's going to be an exciting season this year. I really think there's going to be a lot of amazing games, a lot of amazing moves by teams, and just a lot of stuff that's going to kind of we're going to look at the game and be like, wow, I didn't even think of this or think of that. And the game's evolving, constantly evolving, and it's going to be exciting. I'm excited for the season to start.
Definitely. Can't wait. It's fast approaching, and we'll see how these predictions line up this season. So I think that'll wrap us up here on our inaugural Pressbox Talk. It was definitely a lot of fun, and hope you all listening enjoyed it as much as we did.